Now that a new Odroid H2 Plus has arrived, we're going to finalise the internals of the my64 with a Transcend 256GB M2 NVMe SSD and a Corsair 8GB SODIMM memory card. In the last video, I had borrowed an Odroid out of my cluster to determine where best to locate everything. Today I've taken delivery of a brand new Odroid with some additional cables. The 11cm by 11cm board comes wrapped in anti-static packaging with only the real-time clock battery to plug in. A handy leaflet is provided giving details of the layout of the board. Hold on to this, it'll become useful later. The CPU is buried under a large passive heatsink that dominates the board, but is actually lower in height than the sockets themselves. On the underside of the board is where both the memory and the M2 SSD are fitted. Fitting the SODIMM memory is very straightforward. The board can have two memory cards, each up to 16GB in size, but today we're fitting a single 8GB card, which slides in easily and clicks down to secure. The M2 NVMe SSD is fitted with a small retaining screw for which you'll need a small Phillips style screwdriver. Once both the SSD and the memory cards have been fitted to the underside of the board, they have only minimal protrusion. This allows the 1cm standoffs to give just enough clearance for airflow beneath the board and doesn't raise the audio sockets up too high to interfere with the case. Finally, you need to fit the real-time clock battery, which slots into a little socket at the side of the motherboard. I normally hot glue this to the side of the audio sockets to keep it out of the way of the heatsink. Now to mount the Odroid inside the my64 case. Here we can see the internals of the my64 case with the Odroid H2 in place. As I said in the last video, I've used the ventilation slots and drilled one hole to secure it to the case with 1cm standoffs. The maker beam screws for securing the standoffs needed a little work with a file to widen the ventilation slots at the appropriate places. Now that the motherboard is being secured, we can move on to the internal power supply unit, which is the 160W HDPlex AC to DC converter. Mounted towards the front of the case, the 160 unit is no longer sold, as they are now doing a 200W version. But this particular unit was left over from a previous project. The same approach is taken with bolting down the AC to DC converter. Next is the wiring of the AC to DC converter into an electrical junction connector, capable of handling 10 amps. As the AC to DC converter can only output 8 amps and the Odroid will only ever draw 4 amps, it will be more than suitable. The mains connector, as I said in the last video, I'll be mounting through the slot that was designed for the cooling fan. And the extra power cable I purchased from Odroid will run from the power jack socket to the electrical junction connector. The remaining item is the 40mm cooling fan. The one supplied with the my64 is a 12V fan. However, the Odroid is set up to cater for a 5V fan. So I've got one of these in order, which will fit in the next video. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.